Hello. I thought I would pop on a couple of minutes early because this is a brand new computer. I'm using the webcam and I have no idea if it works. So I can see myself. Can you hear me? Can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear? Because I don't know whether the sound is working. Is the sound working at all? Let me try this. Can you hear me? I don't know if anybody can hear. Can you guys hear me? You can. Good. Thank you very much. Yeah, I've got a little indicator on the bottom of the screen, but as I say, I used to do it on my phone. But when the house sale went through, we finally spent a bit of money on ourselves. So yes, I bought a brand new computer, so that's good. So I just want to say hello to everybody. Hello to Raggy the Rotten, my garden and dinosaurs who live there, S. Arlam, James, Cody, Fiona. Hello, thank you for popping in. I basically just want to have a little bit of a chat because I haven't done a live stream for months and months and months. And I really wanted to do a live when we were up at the farm during the summer. So we had all that beautiful evening light. But the signal up there, the phone signal up there isn't great. Again, so I didn't want to have to use my phone and it cut out and just not work. And we don't have any Wi-Fi up there at the moment. So there was nowhere for me to kind of do it. So I thought, and we were super busy. So I thought I would just do one tonight. Just because, you know, the clocks are going back. There's more of an evening now because I'm not at the farm till, 8, 9 o'clock at night. And it'd be nice to catch up with everybody and also answer some of your questions. So I've been asked quite a lot of questions on the Facebook group and also on the post on YouTube. So we are going to go through the questions and I'm going to answer them to the best of my ability. And hopefully we are going to have a nice little chat. I'm going to get sidetracked all night looking at the feed. But again, this is way better than it used to be because I used to have it on my phone, and then every time I wanted to see what you guys had written, I had to touch the screen, and it was really annoying. So this way, I can actually have a nice chat with everybody. So we'll go through the questions that I've been given in advance. If you have any questions, then just put them in capital letters, and I will get to them. If I miss them, just keep asking, because if it scrolls past really quickly, I'm not going to be able to see them or scroll back necessarily. So without further ado, we're going to have a slurp of tea. We've got the dogs here. They might make an appearance at some. Are you going to make an appearance? Hello. Ah. So Bo's here with her little sharky mouth. Sharky mouth. Got a sharky mouth. Are you going to say hello, Beetle? Come on, Beetle. Come over here. Here she is. Oh, lovely. Thank you. Very nice. Thank you. Very nice. That's lovely. Okay, enough now. And Jock's in his crate. Jock is being a bit naughty today. He went into the garden earlier and we couldn't find him. And he had crawled through to next door, gone out their garden gate, gone round the house and was out the front on the road. So he is in his crate of shame. Yes, Raggy, proper British. We've got to have a cup of tea in our hands at all times. I did go to the supermarket. I debated having some wine time and having a glass of red, but I thought, no, we've got to be a little bit British about this and have a cup of tea. So, right, without further ado, let's go through a few questions. Now, I wonder, if I flick tabs, do I still appear? Am I still on the screen? That's the question. I think I am. So I think I can slip. I am drinking PG Tips all the way. Right, so the first question was from Danny Girl, and she said, I was wondering if you only had 3.5 acres, what would you prioritize, and what do you think is the most value out of the things you've done? My partner and I only have 3.5 acres, and our goal is to be as self-sufficient as possible and trying to make enough from the land to cover living costs. So if I only had 3.5 acres, I think the first thing you have to do if you have any land is to really lay out what you want to achieve. Are you doing it as a small holding to grow food, cover costs, and just live that homesteading life? Or are you doing it to try and do all of that, but also make money? And because that really affects what you're going to do. So for me, for example, my chickens are kind of a waste of time in terms of a business sense. So if you're wanting to just have a small holding and grow stuff, I would say chickens, because you can actually sell the eggs enough to cover the costs of the feed, I find, especially if you rotate on pasture. And I would say do a sort of a market garden and vegetable growing and an honesty stand that can cover the costs. If you want to do it as a business, I personally would probably throw out all of the animals because they don't make you any money. You need lots of animals to make you decent amounts of money. You need to do it on a kind of a commercial scale, or you need to think outside the box. So, for instance, I am next year going to be doing goat picnics with my goats. So I can't sell my goats for very much. They won't make much money, but I can make something that makes more money by having people come to the farm and having an experience day with them. With the market garden, again, vegetables don't make as much money as flowers. So if you've got any land and you want to prioritize, you need to first think, am I doing this as a hobby and just to cover costs, or am I doing it as a business? If you're doing it just to cover costs and you're going to live that life, do the things you love, because there's no point having all this wonderful land and then just say going and getting some pigs because you think they'll make some money, but actually hate keeping pigs. And it becomes a chore and it becomes too much. You can't bear the mud. Just do away with that, because the whole point of living this life is to enjoy it, because it's not a job, it's a way of life. So that's the first thing. If you're doing it for profit, seriously consider not using, you can get animals, but I wouldn't count on them for making profit unless you're going down the really stud stock breeding line and going to try and make some, £10,000, £20,000 from a ram or a bull or something. I would veer away from that, and I would go towards market garden products, because they are seeing a massive surge in popularity across the UK, in particular because of COVID and because people want to eat more healthily, and also flowers, because flowers make a lot of money and you don't need a vast amount of space. I'll just see if anybody's said a thing. And Mars says, did you get that massive piece of cardboard? I did. I got that massive piece of cardboard, and I also got a load of other cardboard in the car. So thank you very much. And I will be coming by again next week to get some more. So that was from Danny Girl. The next is from IRFU, who says, do you plan to try adding different birds to the aviaries, like zebra finches, budgies, or wild breeds of quail? The answer to that is no, not right now. Mainly, so we had budgies and we had cockatiels in one of those aviaries. And last winter, the rats broke in and they actually ate them. They would climb in at night, they would burrow in, and they would grab them off the perches and kill them. And I took all the budgies out because I thought the budgies are getting mullered here. I'm gonna take them out and protect them in a cage. But I left the cockatiels in, thinking cockatiels got strong beaks, they'll be fine. And within 2 days, the rats had come back and got in and taken them. So no plans at the moment. I love aviary birds. I love keeping them. I loved having my zebra finches and my Java fish sparrows and all the different finches. But at the moment, they're not going to make any money for the business. They would just be a hobby, and I haven't got time. So maybe in the future, but not right away. Next question is from Family Van Life Adventures. They say, we are starting our own small holding. I'm slowly working through your videos, but what would you think are the top 5 recommendations to kickstart our dreams? Oh, Okay, top 5 recommendations for a small holding. That's hard because there's so many things you could do, and that's such an open-ended question. My recommendations would be number one, don't ponder too much. Just get on with it, because it's good to do some research and to know your stuff, but there is too much pondering sometimes and thinking about tomorrow. Just do it. Get on with it. Don't wait for that perfect fence that's going to cost thousands to be put up, because you might put it in the wrong place. Just build a fence, get a cheap fence, and do it. Don't spend hundreds and hundreds of pounds on a chicken coop that actually might not be any use to you in the future. Just get a second-hand or a cheap chicken coop, or make something. My main pasture one is made out of old Aviary panels with some pond liner over the top, and I rotate the pasture around, and it's worked perfectly. So number one, just get on with it. It's hard. It's really hard. Number two, second recommendation. I guess back to that previous question. Decide whether you're doing it as a business or just to make ends meet and just to make it a hobby. That's really important, because it's going to really decide where you go. So that's number two. Decide whether you're small holding, homesteading, or you want to make a business from it. Number three, I would say get an honesty box out as quickly as you can. I really put mine off for ages and ages and ages, because I just thought, oh, people won't buy, I don't have enough stuff. But just put it out there. Just do it. Because even if you're just selling a few eggs in here and there, because you start to build that customer base immediately. Number four, again, with the same lines of selling, contact your local farmers markets ASAP. Don't wait, because a lot of places don't want to have multiple vendors of eggs or fresh produce. So you need to catch that market at exactly the right time where they have a gap. I was really, really lucky, and the vegetable guy had literally just gone a few months earlier, so I could sweep in and take his spot. So just put out all of those feelers, because even if they're booked up now and they haven't got any spots, if you put out that feeler, they'll know who to come to when somebody leaves. And number five, I did have number five in my head, and it's completely just gone out the window. Number five, my fifth recommendation. What was it? I've forgotten. You've put me on the spot, but there's four. So let's just see. So the next question was from Wakwas. I'm really sorry if I'm butchering your name. Wakwas Zaib. I really hope I've said that right. So they say, do you have any more plans for greenhouses and polytunnels? And what are your plans for the goats? Have you considered making soap, etc.? So yes, polytunnels. I was going to get one really big polytunnel. You might have seen that at the end of the market garden, I've got my polytunnel now, which is fantastic, and it's been just a dream to have. And I got a smaller one, and the dream is, and the idea is, I'm going to have three smaller ones side by side, rather than that one huge one, because I think then it's easier to control what you're growing. If you have a disease outbreak in one, then the other two are protected. It costs more, because you've got to do three separate ones and then three separate watering systems and all of that. But I think in the long term, for growing, it will work better for growing a variety of things and kind of biosecuring stuff and disease protecting stuff. In terms of the goats, my plan is not to make soap, because in the UK here, there's quite a lot of rules and red tape when it comes to selling dairy products, making soap. You have to kind of fit with all the different regulations. So my plan is, with the goats, I've got my 3 Anglo-Nubian nannies. So I'm going to breed them for babies. So we're going to sell the babies. We're going to use the milk for ourselves. And then we are going to sell the babies, milk for ourselves, and then I don't know what I'm forgetting what I'm saying. I'm sure there were 3 things. Sell the babies, have milk for ourselves. Oh yeah, and then the experience days. So then do some farm courses about care, husbandry, and then sort of the goat picnic parties and things like that. The next is MC Last says, what would you say have been your biggest wins and biggest challenges in your journey thus far? Did you have something just barely work out, but that you're still totally proud of yourself for doing it? I would say the biggest challenge this year has been the entire year because this growing season this year has been absolutely terrible. I thought it was just myself to start with until I started checking in with some friends, talking to other people. And in the UK in particular, it was awful because spring was really, really, really dry. It was also really hot in the day, but really cold at night. So we had all of these seedlings that normally you would have moved out and hardened off outside, but you couldn't because there were still frosts until right up into mid-May. There was also no wet at all. It was so dry. So you put seedlings outside and they would just shrivel up and die. So that was the major challenge of this year was the weather. And I guess one thing that then I was really proud of that was a challenge and that succeeded was the Honesty Box. It was a challenge, to get products onto the Honesty Box, but then it was also a challenge to not have things stolen from the Honesty Box, which we had if you watched me on Instagram, you'll know we had a massive issue with thefts. We did put a camera down there, and I did catch a couple of people on film. Now, one of them, I was fairly sure that this lady had stolen flowers, but the camera had cut out, so I couldn't, and she had paid for something. I don't think she paid for everything, so I couldn't 100% guarantee that she had stolen. The second lady definitely stole. I saw her take them, get in her car and go. And so I shared those photos on social media and on the Facebook groups and the local community Facebook group. And I haven't had a single theft since. So I think maybe the lady saw that actually I was not afraid to call her out. And B, if anybody else had also been stealing, they also saw I wasn't afraid to call anybody else out. So I was happy with that, how that went. And then the market, again, I wasn't going to do farmers markets this year. I only went to the farmers market because it got to the beginning of October and I was going up to the flower field and seeing all these flowers, which were still doing amazingly, and just thinking, as soon as we get a frost, these are going to be zapped. And then not only have I got hundreds of pounds worth of product sitting in the field that will just die, but it's also really, really pretty and I want to share it. So I did the farmers market. I hardly had anything to take, but we went and it was a success. So I was really, really happy with how it went. And then the final question that's all of the questions off the YouTube channel. So I have more. I have more on my phone, and then I will answer your questions that you've put in the feed here. So Sandra says, how are your rabbits doing? The rabbits are doing really well. So some of you know that we did have the RVHD outbreak, and I had 4 or 5 kits left. I think I had 3 bucks and 2 does left from my litters that I hadn't sold yet. And unfortunately, over the space of 2 or 3 days, they all died. However, I did have the parent stock. So Liara, Tally, Thane, and Ralph had all been vaccinated the previous year. I hadn't given them a booster because it was coming up to their booster time. And I thought, well, I'm not going to go and spend 60 quid a rabbit for a booster and then they drop dead because they've got it. So they just had to fend off any disease themselves. And they were fine. They were totally fine. So I'm about to try and breed Liara or Tally, so we can get some new kits coming into winter. And I'm currently kind of debating with myself. I'm not a fan of how I'm keeping them. They're in hutches. I give them lots of food and lots of diversity in food, and they come out into runs. But I'm not a fan of keeping them solely in hutches. So at the moment, I'm trying to think of a new method. I may build a rabbit colony. My main reason for not building a rabbit colony previously was the fact that we have a high incidence rate of mixed mitosis and RVHT2. Now I know that we do have it and that the babies die, but the adults don't. So I may well build a colony system now, put all the adults out. Myxomatosis and RVH2 tend to occur in the summer months. It's spread by biting fleas and blood-sucking insects and things, which come out in the warmer months. So I'm thinking if I breed the rabbits early on in the year, so the kits are mature by May, June-ish time, I can sell them on or process them for the freezer before the disease attacks. So that's something I would like to look into doing this winter, I guess, when the ground's softer, to build a colony system for them, because I would love to have it. And I think they're huge rabbits. They should not be stuck in their hutches and runs. They should be able to have a lot more freedom. So that's something on the dream list. Aisha Cola says, how is farm life? Is it a 24/7 mental burden or something that excites you and motivates you? And important winter jobs for the home garden allotment. So firstly, how is farm life? Farm life is brilliant. I'm sure you'll have noticed on my videos that compared to when I was back in the urban homestead, I seem to be a lot more chilled out and a lot more happier. Because although she said mental burden or something that excites you, although it can be a mental burden because you've got to get up and you've got to go to the farm, that gives me some structure. And I love it. And it's been my dream, and I'm here and I'm doing it. And Sard loves doing it. And we're kind of continuing what my grandparents started. So it's wonderful. It is 24/7. I wouldn't call it a job. It is farm life because I'm 24/7 thinking about it or planning, or it's difficult sometimes to take a step away and not do any farming because I'm always thinking about it. But it's fantastic. I love it. I highly recommend it. And important winter jobs for the home garden allotment. I would just say infrastructure. Get your beds done now. Get new beds. Either if you're digging, get them rotivated and then cover them over with black plastic. The same for me. I'm just getting my beds in. I'm getting the cardboard down, I'm getting the soil on, and then I'm covering them in black plastic to stop the weed growth. Get all your infrastructure ready for next year so that when you hit the spring, you're just concentrating on growing stuff. You're not suddenly going, I haven't got enough space, or I didn't put that pond in, or I haven't done that water system yet. Get all of that done now, and then you can kind of relax a little bit in the spring when you're just sowing seeds and doing all the fun bits. Moira McKay says, I would love to hear your thoughts on your living situation and the farm infrastructure. Is an on-farm house permanently off the table? How is the rental and commute working out? Plans for farm building with power, water, plumbing, etc. So yes, so as a lot of you know, we have had some issues when it comes to living on site. So we have a barn, and we are going to try and convert that barn into a house. In the UK, it is very, very, very hard to live on agricultural land. They just don't like you to do it at all. It's not like other places like in America where you buy some land and they actively encourage you to build a house. Over here, they actively try and stop you from building a house. So we put in our planning application. Our planning officer told us he was going to reject it, so we have withdrawn it for now. The plan still is to convert that barn into living accommodation, but it's years and years and years away. The other route we were going to go down is going for building an agricultural tie. And building an agricultural tie is where you build a house which is tied to the land. So you're saying, I'm building a farmhouse because I need it for the farmland. And then in the future, that farmhouse can only be sold on as an agricultural building. However, having talking to planning officers and architects, barely any agricultural new build ties get through these days because of technology, because planning officers will turn around, and when you say, but I need to be there because of my animals, I need to be there for security, I need to be there for this reason and for that reason, they just say, well, there are security cameras, you need to do better security, you can be there for lambing, but then you need to leave and not live there. So, you know, we are going to live there eventually. I am determined we will get there. But it's on the back burner, and it's going to take many, many years, I think. At the moment, the commute is fine. It takes me 5 minutes. So, you know, compared to where we lived before, 2 hours away, I don't mind just jumping in the car, driving there. It's fine. It's better than what it was, and it's better than many people have it. And I'm not going to sort of be downhearted about something that actually many people would find really, really easy to do. Yes. Oh, I'm being brought dinner. Thank you. I have some rare, what is it? Beef?
Yes. Beef rump.
Beef rump.
Yeah.
So Sada's been watching Nigella. Lots of Nigella. Basically because Drag Race did Nigella. A Nigella takeoff, and then he's made me some beef. Very, very nice. I'll eat that in a minute. Yeah, so the commute. So I'm not going to be bad on the commute. Many people don't have it. The one thing we are planning to do, though, is build an office, because we weren't going to put in an office, because then I was thinking when I went for an agricultural tie, they would then turn around and say, well, you don't need to live on site because you've got an office and you're running your business quite well with an office, so you don't need to build a house as well. Now that's not happening, and we're going to be purely going down the barn conversion route. We're going to be putting in an office. So I've already contacted the electric people. Electric people can cost a vast amount to connect you. Luckily, we already have power on site because it goes to my neighbour's property. And so it's going to cost us about £2,000 to be connected to power, which is fantastic, because many people say they get quotes of sort of upwards of 10,000. Water, we are going to get water connected as well this winter. Again, it was going to cost us about 2,000. And then we're going to have an office, which is split into 3 bits. There'll be SARD's kind of birds of prey office. There'll be a den / office for me. And we want to put a little log burner in there, and a sink and wash up. And then we're going to have a storage space as well. And we're going to have electric in there so we can plug in our laptops, and we can have lights. And yeah, so that's really exciting. I'm really excited for that. And then we're also going to be pimping the barn. So I'm not going to let a barn, just a really nice piece of real estate, crumble away. So we're going to wall the barn. We're going to put concrete floors down. We're going to get electric in there. And we're going to use that as a proper, nice agricultural barn that we can lamb in and use for the future. So our lovely Liz Zorab says, what has been the best outcome on the farm this year? What worked better than you expected? Camping. Many of you know that I'm not a fan. I like people. I like individual people, but I'm not a fan of humans collectively. And having worked on an open farm before, I was concerned about opening my land up to random people to come and camp. However, when you're building a business and there is no income and you are hemorrhaging money on all sorts of infrastructure, and then the government goes, you can put up a pop-up campsite for 56 days. I just had to suck it up because I needed to take advantage of it. And it worked really well. I actually, what worked better than you expected? It's the campsite. you know, we offered wild camping. We only provided people with 2 portaloos. There weren't proper pitches. It was just a trimmed field. You pitched where you want. They got one 5-litre bottle of water when they arrived. And that's it. That's all they got. And we were booked throughout the season. We didn't make a vast amount of money, but we were booked every single day throughout the season. We met some amazing people. You know, one lady came on with her bat detector, and she noted brown-eared bats and pipistrelles. Another lady came on, and she works down the road. She's a florist. So another couple came from Southend, and they've got some building skills. So it worked really, really well. And if the council or if the government decide to extend that 56 days and do it again next year, we will definitely do a campsite again, slightly differently. This year we did the summer holidays, and then we did a few weekends towards the end of July, and then a few weekends in September. Next year we would do half term, May half term, and then summer holidays rather than the odd weekends. And if we've got the water piped up here by then I can also offer people water rather than having to give them bottles. But yeah, definitely works brilliantly. And then my last question. Oh no, I've got 2 more questions. Tracy asked, are you raising chickens for meat? If so, which breed? The answer is yes. We're raising the rare breed Ixworth. They're a dual purpose breed, so we get eggs and meat from them, which is great. And then Chris, this is the last question, and then I will come to your questions on here that I know that have just been whizzing by. It's from Chris Bukes, and she says, have you got plans for the other 35 acres? Cows? ? Are you allowed to live on site in a large caravan on the farm and live in that? So yeah, so no, we're not allowed to live in a caravan. You can currently live with the 56-day rule. You can currently be in a caravan for 56 days without moving. Now, our farm is split in 2. Me and Sard own one bit, and my parents still own the other bit. So on a technicality, we could put a caravan there and live in that for 56 days, and then move it across to the other parcel and live in that in 56 days. But technically couldn't live in there any longer. So no, we can't do that. The other 35 acres, cows, yes, they are coming next year. My main thing with cows is escapes. So if you saw my video yesterday about the goats escaping, it's quite lighthearted, because if a goat gets out, it's no massive deal. They can't really get onto the road. They're just going to go into another field, and they come back relatively easy, and there's only so much damage they can do. Same with the pigs, same with the sheep. Herd of cattle getting out would be way too stressful. So before we get the cows, I really want to do some more perimeter fencing, which, as you probably know, costs thousands of pounds. It would cost us, it would probably cost us £50,000 to properly fence the entirety of our land, which is the end goal. That is the end goal, because eventually we want to rewild the entire 37 acres, aside from our small sort of high intensity market farm area, and do as many rewilders have, and they just let their animals go. So they have a sheep flock, they have a herd of cattle, maybe they have maybe a little herd of pigs, and they just go. They rewild. They manage the land themselves, and it's called sort of managed rewilding. So that's the dream. But for now, we had to contain it a little bit. So cows next year, and the rest is being kind of rewilded and grazed. So we have the goats that graze basically wherever they want. I have a friend who actually set up a small farm for a care home. I mean, I know. Imagine going to a nursing home for your final years of life, and there is a farm on site, and you can go and feed animals. Amazing. But he hasn't got a lot of land there. So he is running a few of his sheep, currently his Norfolk Horn flock, on my land. So some of it's put to that. And then the rest is just left to wildlife. And I think that's why we've got such amazing wildlife up there, because we're not really intensely doing anything with it. We're just letting it go, letting nature take its course. And that is all the questions from the before. So now I can concentrate on you lovely people and what you've asked in the chat here. I may just try a little bit of this this pork. It's not pork, this beef, which Sard has done very nicely. Very rare for me, because I do like meat very rare. And I'm going to dip it in whatever he's made here. That's very good. Very good. And you know, it'll be even better when it's our own cows. That would be fantastic. I'm also going to have a slug of tea. Hello. You can see the little nose of the doggy. Right. So I'm going to scroll back up. I'm going to see what people have been asking. So Sunflower and Silkies, hello, says, any plans to expand the meat rabbits? So as I mentioned, no plans to massively expand them yet, but I do want to move to a colony system, and I think I can get away with inoculating breeding stock against myxomatosis and RVHD2. You then can't eat them because obviously they've been inoculated against quite a toxic, horrible disease. But I think I can get away with doing that with the breeding stock, keeping the breeding stock in the colony system, and then breeding them really early on in the year, having kits that are mature before the summer, and then moving those kits on either into the freezer or selling them on to other people and just saying, look, they're not inoculated. That's your responsibility if you want to do that. So we may go down that line. That is one thing that possibly I might get a little work party together this winter and try and set up a colony somewhere. No idea where, but we'll find somewhere. Sam Prattley says, where did he say? I saw you say something, Sam. Are you going to offer any lessons at some point on your land? Yes, we are. So, in fact, next Saturday, we have our first sort of event. It's not a lesson, but we're having a photography morning where basically people can come. It's open for amateur photographers. You come to our farm, you meet us, there's refreshments, we'll have tea and coffee and stuff outside or on hay bales or whatever, depending on the weather. And then we'll just go off and explore the farm, forage, and find all the cool little things. Because I love landscapes and I love big animals, but I also am completely obsessed with disappearing into a wood and looking at the ground and finding little mossy stumps covered in, moss and fungi, or amazing little lichens and stuff along tree bark. And we found an amazing fungi again that I mentioned yesterday that's really, really rare, which is the marbled peach. So we found that on our land. So so people are going to have the chance to come and meet us and see us and go off on a little photography morning. So that's the first. And then hopefully next year, when the barn is done, we're hoping that we can do more kind of lessons, as it was. So kind of market garden lessons, growing lessons, animal husbandry lessons. It'll probably be more on a one-on-one basis. So maybe just 2 or 3 people, because with that sort of thing, you want to be able to get people hands-on. So obviously, if I can't do a lesson with 20 people, because my goat's going to throw a fit if I'm trying to get 20 people onto its feet each time. But yes, so we are. That's a very long-winded way, Sam, of saying yes, we are going to do some lessons. Rue says, what is your favorite flower grow for cutting, and which is your favorite vegetable? It's really difficult, Rue, because every single plant that flowered, I said was my new favorite flower. And the same with the vegetables. I think my favorite vegetable from this year, actually, I do have a favorite vegetable. My favorite vegetable is cucumber. I know that might sound really rather bland, but there's nothing quite like a homegrown cucumber, because the ones you buy in the supermarket taste of water. They just taste of nothing. And the one you grow yourself have such a heavy flavor. It's amazing. They are also, because they are basically 99% water, on a hot summer's day when you need a drink, you can just go into your vegetable garden, snap a cucumber, and you can just eat the entire thing. It's so thirst quenching and delicious cucumbers. My favorite flower grown for cutting. I think it's got to be the straw flower, which there are some here. And I think that's this year because I've never grown them. They were some of the first flowers to come out on the farm. So they probably started flowering in June. They are still going. And they last forever. And you can dry them. And you can use them. You know, I've started to make up some test wreaths and things for Christmas. And you can use them in that. And they go on and on and on. And they're worth a bit more. The other thing that grew really well this year for me was cornflowers. And I have sold hundreds of pounds worth of cornflower posies. But they are fiddly and they don't have such a high value. So you've got to pick, you know, I'm selling my cornflower posies. They've got 20 cornflowers in it for £2. So it's 10p a stem. It's not a high value flower at all. So it takes a long time. Whereas the straw flowers are a much higher value flower that you can use in your bouquets, in posies, or just to cut. People come and cut them. So I think this year it's been these, but next year it'll probably be something else. But also the gladioli. The gladioli didn't sell, but they were absolutely stunning. And I don't care that they didn't sell because I'm still going to buy loads more because they're fantastic. So Miles says, why don't you grow some pom-pom dahlias? Because I think they're gross. I don't know why. I just don't like them. I did grow dahlias from seed, as you know, and they were a cactus dahlia. They just came in a packet of mixed cactus dahlia seeds. And they were fantastic. And I really like dinner plate dahlias that are massive. But I'm wondering whether Mars asked this because he knows. But I really don't like pom-pom dahlias. I think they're disgusting. I just don't see the attraction of them at all. I don't think they're pretty. They're not good for wildlife because there's no nectar or pollen in them that anything can get to. So, yeah, we don't do that. And then let's see. Cody said, have you harvested any rabbits yet? I haven't, because I was literally just about to, and then I lost all my kits to RVHD2. So I unfortunately didn't get around to it at all this year. So I will have to try it again in 2022. And just saying that sends a slight shudder because how is it already 2022 in like 8 weeks' time? Actually insane. So Sam says, are you both still close to family? Making the leap for me made me moving to Wales, and I'm struggling with the idea of moving away from my family. So for me, I've actually moved closer to my family. So I guess Saad's actually Canadian. So Saad moving to Suffolk for Saad was nothing because he'd already moved from Toronto to London. So for him, it really wasn't anything at all. And my family live in Suffolk. So for me, I am really close to them. For me, it was a nice move. I'm not actually that much closer. I think where I was before, it would take me about an hour and 20 minutes to drive to them. And where they are now, it still takes me a good sort of 50 minutes. But I think psychologically, being in the same county just makes it feel a lot closer. So yeah, it is difficult making the leap. And I know a lot of the land in the UK, which is affordable, is Liz Zorab's way, so in Wales, or up towards Scotland, where you might get a little Scottish retreat. And unfortunately, that does often mean you have to move away from family and friends. So it's a difficult one. So yeah, I've been really, really lucky that I've actually moved towards friends and family. And I grew up in Ipswich. So actually, I've come back to an area where a lot of my friends still live around here. So it's been quite good. Miles says, the big question, have you started a compost bin? I have, but I haven't been very successful because I haven't looked after it properly. I've got 2 compost bays made out of pallets. And I've just kind of thrown stuff in there. I haven't mixed it. I didn't keep it moist throughout the dry season. I basically didn't do anything. I'm sure I haven't even dug a fork into it, but I'm sure it's terrible. But maybe I'll be surprised if I turn it over. I'm certainly no compost king. I'm not one of these people that can make compost. You know, some of these gurus start their compost heap, and within 6 weeks they've got beautiful compost. That's not going to be me. I'm going to have bays that probably sit around for a year or two before I even dig into them. But yeah, I have started it, Miles. Honestly, I have, and I will get there. But I have a lot to do, so I'll get there eventually. So Andrew says, have you thought of laying your hedges to stop your goats from escaping? I have. The only problem with our hedges is they would need a lot of hedge laying. And I've never done hedge laying, so I'm a complete amateur. And our hedges, I mean, I'm sure they can be laid, but our hedges are old hedges. So, you know, you're looking at hedges that are 100 years or more old. So they've got some really big trees in them. The other problem is they have, because they're so old, they've expanded up and they've expanded out, which means the center is basically hollow. So I would think you can't lay that. I would think you need to cut everything back first, let the sunshine in so you can start to get some growth, and then maybe start laying it. It's an interesting one. Maybe I can get some people to come up, and some hedge laying gurus to come and see if they could do some, because it would help in the long term, and it could solve a lot of issues in terms of fencing, if I could get the hedges laid all the way around. So yeah, are you any good at hedge laying, Andrew? Do you want to come and show me? Bolo Bobic says, hi from London. Can you put up solar panels and wind turbines? I really hope so. The plan is, so we are getting electric and water connected in the next few weeks, but the roof of our barn is vast. So that would be amazing to put some solar up there. We're also, where we're intending on putting our little office, is the perfect, what's the word? Positioning. There's a better word, but you know what I mean, to catch the best light. So we want to put some solar on there. And there is a farm a couple of miles away that have just a residential turbine, not one of the massive 3-pronged industrial things, but a residential one. And as you know from the videos, we are super windy here. So it would be really nice to have a turbine of some sorts just to generate some power, because eventually, you know, I want to future-proof the farm. Although we're getting connected to water, I want to put in a borehole eventually. And although we're connecting electricity, I want to have these sustainable power sources eventually too, because I just want to live. I want the security of being connected to the grid for now, but also the security of not being connected to the grid, so I can have the best of both worlds. Susie St. James says, does your parents' property have a house? Yeah, my parents just live in a very ordinary bungalow. Yeah, so they don't own. They own half the farm still from my granddad's days, but they don't live there. They live in a bungalow about 50 minutes away. So the only property that was on the farm was the original farmhouse, which was sold, and the farmyard, which was also sold, and those barns were converted into holiday lets. So there is no house or property on the land at all, sadly. And thank you, Liz. Yes, it does make it a lot easier if people put it in capitals, because then I can just scroll. Cyanach says, I'm really hoping I said that right. Is it Cyanach or Cyana? Says, what is the plan with the pure breed poultry, and do you plan on adding new breeds? So the plan with the pure breed poultry is to try and stick with local rare breeds. as you have all seen, I am not very good at sticking to that plan because I love poultry. So I obviously now I have the Old English game, and I have the modern game, and I have the blue silkies, and I have the barbadambas, and we have the Ixworth, and now we have the barnacle geese and the pheasants and all of that. So my plan now is, and this is slightly spurred on by the chap I mentioned earlier who has the care farm. He is very much like Sard in terms of being a facilitator of animal collecting. So I am going to stick to the rare breeds where I can. I'm never going to get rid of Ixworth, and I'm never going to get rid of my silver Appleyard ducks because they are a very local rare breed that I want to help establish that line. And I sell those. So I breed them, and I sold some hens the other day to somebody to sort of propagate the rare breed and keep the breeds going. And also because they're dual purpose, I can sell eggs from them, I can sell chicks from them, I can eat the cockerels and the drakes. So it all works out really well. The plan in the future will probably be to add more chicken breeds, but to try and do so in a structured way. So by trios, like I did with the modern game and the Old English game, by trios of a set breed, and keep them together and sell hatching eggs from them and breed them and then sell them on, rather than just have a flock of 50 different chickens, all different types, all intermixing. Do more specific things with each. But again, we have the space, but it comes down to having the coops, because if you're going to do that, you need an individual coop for every single breed. I haven't yet managed to make any chicken tractors because my DIY skills aren't that great. A friend has used some Harris fencing, which is typically used in the construction industry as the safety barriers. He used Harris fencing over in the States. Obviously, you guys use cattle panels, but he used Harris fencing to make a diagonal, and then he put a door on the front and he put wood on the back. So I'm going to try doing something similar to make some chicken tractors that I can then individually house all these different birds in. And also put the barnacle geese in, because next year I really want to safeguard those barnacle geese and hopefully have some little babies. Cody said, how did you get your job with livestock? I'm going to college next year and will be completing an agricultural course. Just wondering how you got to work with livestock. It was a complete and utter fluke. I had worked with livestock in my private life. So I'd grown up with livestock. I had never done a job with livestock, never been paid to do it. Sard wanted to do a falconry course. So we went to Barleylands to speak to the falconry people. And the falconry people said, oh, why don't you do a falconry course? Why don't you come and volunteer for us? So he said, oh, that'd be great. And then on the way out, I went, oh, it's really nice here, isn't it? I wonder if they've got any jobs. So I asked them if they had got any jobs. And they did. So I applied for a job, not as a livestock manager. I don't know whether you know, but on an open farm, generally, you're sort of, it's not really, it's a livestock job, but it's not. It's a bit of everybody. You do parties, you do reception. You're basically you're a host, a sort of animal host. You do talks. So that's the job that I applied for. And then I got that job, and then about 2 months into that job, several people had left, and I was really concerned about the animals. I just saw that there was nobody really left that was focusing on the animal welfare. Everybody didn't have those skills, and things were getting missed, and I was worried. So they decided to hire a livestock manager. They had a couple of interviews from other people who they didn't like. And then I just was like, no, I've had enough. I'm going to go and speak to management. So I went to speak to management. I said, look, I don't know the best, but I have common sense. I can use Google. I can phone vets. I can find out information. I know about admin and regulations. Let me do it. And they did. And so that's basically how I fell into it. And I was so lucky that happened all in the right order, and it can perfectly set me up for the farm now. But my advice, if you are wanting to get a job in livestock after doing agricultural courses and stuff like that, is just go and do some voluntary work somewhere. Get as much voluntary work as you can. Go and talk to people, go and talk to local farmers, try and get connections. The two chaps that are working on, that I'm kind of working with on my land now, again, they just asked if they could come and keep some sheep there, or they could come and, you know, have a yard there. And I was like, yeah, fine. So most people will be willing for an extra pair of hands. So I would just go and ask for help and network as much as you can. Oh no, I'm really sorry. So, okay. Can you spell out the phonetical way to say your name? Because I'm going to have to say it again. So Waqas Zaib said, just caught up with the chat, you slightly butchered the name. And I probably butchered it again because I still don't know how to say it. I'm really sorry. Sam said, I planted my garlic today. Do you think I've left it too late? You have not left it too late at all. Garlic, you want to follow a very careful balancing line with onions and garlic. You don't want it to be so warm that they shoot off and then it gets cold and they get frosted, because if they put on too much greenery, they will get frosted. That's why I don't like to do broad beans before Christmas anymore, because I would find in the south my broad beans would grow and I'd be like, fantastic, and then the frost would come and it would burn off the leaves. So you want to put onions and garlics in when it's cold enough that they're not going to shoot off, but not when it's, so it's cold enough that they're not going to shoot off, but warm enough so they will get a little bit of root growth just to tuck them down, ready for winter. And now is the perfect time. Now through to November, early December, perfect time. So you've done it a great time. Richard Pantelli said, do you trim the feathers around the silkies vents to help with fertility, or just leave them to get on with it? I just leave them to get on with it, to be honest. I just recently bought, you may have seen from Melton Mowbray, I bought a new trio, the blue trio of silkies. When it comes to spring, I may trim a little bit around their vents just to help, because you're right, it does help him do the deed, especially because, they haven't got, it's vent to vent. So you've got to hope that it all lines up. So it's a good idea. So I at the moment just let them get on with it, but I may well try that method with my blue silkies come spring. Jay from Hilltop Farmers here. It's 5:15 in Australia. Thank you very much for tuning in. Jane Kelly's here. Hi, Jane. Rue, Jane. Jackie says, how is Sard's taxidermy going, and will you be having piglets? So, and Waqas. Oh, it's Waqas. Okay, so it's not a Q, it's a K. Waqas Zaib. Did I get that right, please? So Jackie says, so how is Sard's taxidermy going? So firstly, his taxidermy is going really well. It's sod's law again, really. He got to a point where he was like, you know what, I'm going to wind the taxidermy down. I'm making all this beautiful taxidermy. I'm trying to sell it. I'm not managing to sell it because it's a limited niche market. I'm going to wind it down, just do it as a hobby and concentrate on my live birds, because obviously he's got the Harris hawk and he's now got the 3 owls as well. And within the space of a week to 10 days, he then got a load of commissions. So he's now working on a kingfisher. He's working on an owl. He's working on quite a big bespoke hedgerow piece with 3 British hedgerow bird species. So it's going really well, and he loves it. So it's kind of taken off, which is kind of nice. And then, will I be having piglets? Of course. Of course, that's why we got Margaret and Hyacinth. So Margaret and Hyacinth are large black gilts, and a gilt is a young female pig. So she becomes a sow when she's older, but a gilt is a young female pig. So they are now about 12 weeks old. So next year we will get them into pig, and they will have piglets. And then most of those piglets will go into meat boxes. So I got large blacks because they're another rare breed, but the large black, and often a lot of actually the pig rare breeds, they have very, very refined, thin, narrow standards. for what the pigs can have. So, for example, the young sows, so the gilts, have to have 16 nipples. They can't have any more, any less, and they all have to be perfectly aligned. The boys also have to have, I think it's 40. I need to check this, but with the large blacks, I think it's 14 to 18, but it may also be 16. And again, they all have to have them perfectly lined, and they have to have 6, I think, below the penis line. So with those strict criteria for registering them, Hyacinth, let's say Hyacinth has 10 piglets, maybe only 3 of those meet the standard. And so they're the only 3 that you would then register and then sell on or keep to progress that bloodline. So the rest all then go into meat. So I will definitely be having piglets with 2 sows. Suddenly you could go from 2 to 20 if they both had 10 piglets each. So we will see where we progress. They have been doing it. Now it's rained. It's been raining all day. They've done a really, really amazing job of ploughing over that area where I'm going to have the pumpkin patch next year. So we're just about to move their house and move them along, but it's very excited. Welcome, Ada or Ada. They need to say they're new here. Wakas, thank you very much. And I know I finally got it right, which is good. So Bolo says, how are the quails now? The quails are really good. I'm really happy with the quails. I sold the majority of the quails actually earlier on in the year. I had a lot of really old girls from the old house, and I moved them down here, and most of them kind of were 4 or 5 or 6, and they've kind of passed on now. So I think I had 2 hens left and 1 cockerel. I bought in a load of new ones, and then somebody wanted some quails. So I sold them all on, but I kept all of their eggs. And then I hatched all of their eggs out. And it was really nice, actually, because where I bought them from, they must have had a massive mix of colour varieties, because the ones I hatched out, where there were a few, normals, but there were some golden and some pharaoh and some tuxedo. So I've got a nice little mix of quail now, which is really good. But like the rabbits, they're currently in a hutch, and I don't want them to be in a hutch. So another winter job is to make them a much bigger area. Ideally, I'd like to have a nice big kind of aviary for them that I can walk into, that I'm not bending down, that can be all planted up, and I can have them all in there. It'd be fantastic. And then I can just collect their eggs, and then I'll either hatch them out into rearing pens or sell them as quail eggs. But they're really, really good. I am going to be looking at getting some more next year probably, or maybe when they hatch out, maybe when they start laying again, because they're seasonal layers and they've basically stopped now. But when they start laying again, taking some of those eggs and hatching a load more out. Okay. James, hello James. James says, are you mixing peaches with the billy, or are you keeping it separate? So she was in with everybody. So let me tell you the whole story. When Peaches arrived, she had twins earlier in the year. She is always awful post-kidding. She's always really poorly. She loses weight really quickly. So she had twins. My friends have been drying her up, i.e. stopping her from having milk. And she came to the farm. So I kept her separate with the 2 sheep that she came with, because she came with Tracy and Tina. So I kept her separate with them. But then I noticed that Tracy and Tina were they weren't bullying her, but they were hogging the food. So she wasn't getting all the food that she needed. So I thought, well, okay, let me move her in with the goats, and then we'll just make sure she gets loads and loads of food. So she went in with the goats, but she didn't really bond with them. So when they would come out in the daytime, they would hoof off across the field, and she would just hang around with me, which was totally fine. But I was finding that I think they were bullying her at night. And then obviously she had her accident where she got stuck upside down. And then I had to take her out. And then since then, as you know, she's been really poorly. She's fine now. She's just really underweight. So I don't want to even attempt to put her back with the goats until she's really put on some weight. She's active, she's alert, she's happy. But if you rub her, her body condition score is a 2 probably, or maybe a 1 point, actually more like a 1.5, and I want it to get up to a 3. So she needs, and she's quite happy being on her own. And even, you know, as I say, even when the goats are around, she won't go with the goats. She'll hang around with me. So she's quite happy being on her own. So I think what I'm going to do is Gaspode will soon, at 5 months old, Gaspode is able to make babies. So I think at that point, I'm going to separate him and I'm going to have him live with Peaches because he's not related to her. Then she'll have a goatee friend and they can just be like a little couple on the farm. And then the rest of the herd can be together. Now, the one other thing that you will know if you watched the video the other day, sorry, frog in my throat, is I think Peaches may have been served by JJ. So she may be pregnant already. In which case, again, I really need to keep her separate because not only is she thin, but if she's also growing babies inside her, they're going to be taking up a lot of her resources. And so she needs to have a lot more stuff pumped into her and food and stuff. So long-winded answer to your question, but yes, so she's going to be kept separate for now. I'm probably going to put her in with Gaspode and they can form a little duo between them and they can live elsewhere on the farm. But I do desperately want kids out of her because she is a fantastic mother. She's a fantastic milker and she is a lovely, lovely goat. She's never been bred pure. She's always been bred with a cross. So I really would like to continue her bloodline with the Anglo-Nubian. So I'm hoping she's pregnant and I'm hoping she has some nannies and then we'll see where we go from there. Limehouse Blues says, is it hard to have some animals butchered? Yes, it is. And the more I keep them, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. The more I keep them, the harder it is because the more I keep the sheep and the pigs and the more I understand their personalities, the more I go, oh well, look at Hyacinth and Margaret, aren't they lovely? And then I think, but I'm going to eat their babies and their babies are going to be just as lovely, just in a different way. So it is difficult. And I get around it by having my OGs, which are my originals. So say Margaret and Hyacinth, who will get to live out on the farm for their entire life. They will, you know, they'll never go to an abattoir. They'll never get eaten. They will live out their entire life quite happily. And their babies will be processed and butchered. So I skate along the thin line of feeling a bit guilty, sometimes thinking I should be a vegetarian, but then also loving meat. I love to eat meat. And I love to progress rare breeds. And part of the rare breeds thing is you can't just breed rare breeds. And some of them are inevitably not going to be good enough to go on and improve that standard. So it's hard. It is hard. But I would prefer that I have that bit of guilt about it because it means that actually I care rather than I'm just going through the motion. But yeah, there's no simple solution at all. But yes, so that's the answer to that question. Let me look. We will start to wrap this up soon because we've been going for like an hour and 8 minutes. But Wakas says, have you looked into growing mushrooms? I haven't as yet, just because it's another massive thing that I know nothing about. And I've got so much going on. But that's not to say it won't happen in the future. The same that I've been saying for years about bees. I do want to get bees eventually, but I know nothing about keeping bees and I don't want to do it until I have time. And then Ada says, is it really profitable to have a backyard quail farm in standard UK size back garden? I would say no. Possibly. The thing is, in the UK, there are very strict rules about meat production. So if you had a backyard quail farm in England, in the UK, you could only sell the eggs to the public or sell birds. So sell baby birds, chicks, or adult birds. You couldn't sell meat because you can't legally butcher it to sell on to members of the public. Unless you jump through a hell of a lot of red tape, you would have to get a kill license, which is incredibly difficult to actually do, especially in a backyard farm setup. So it really depends. If you wanted to make your money from processed meat quail, it wouldn't work in the UK at all. But maybe you could find an avenue where you could sell the hatching eggs. Maybe you could do a very specific color variety and sell hatching eggs to other hobbyists. Maybe you could join up with somebody that did have an abattoir or a kill license, and you could actually just sell your birds to them. So there's ways around it, but I'm not sure it would. I think for the amount you would have to do to get a big enough income, it wouldn't be viable. The parasite, what method do you find best to deal with rodents? Mainly rats. Rats are a pain in my bottom. The best see, I did want to use poison, but I don't like using it because we have so many birds of prey. So currently, the best method I find is locking all your food up into rat-proof containers. So metal feed bins and things. Do not leave any food around for them. And setting traps. I don't set the snap traps because unfortunately I've had some horrible things with those where I've accidentally caught baby animals. Not baby animals, birds. But I use the live traps, and that's worked in a number of cases. And then you just dispatch the grown rat, or get somebody in, get a ratter in with some Jack Russells that can, if you know where the nests are, they can dig them out. But yeah, I have an ongoing battle with rats, I'm afraid. And that's a very good point, Liz. Find a local. So Liz, in response to the bee thing, said find a local beekeeper who is happy to put their hives on your land, and they'll teach you bit by bit. Exactly, and that's what I do plan to do. We have found a local smallholder who's actually downsizing, and they used to keep a lot of bees, and they've got a lot of empty hives that they're going to sell us. But he was looking at his beehives, and he actually thinks some of his bees have split off and made some extra colonies. So he may even be able to give us a colony of bees with it. He told me a very funny story about there is a famous, I can't remember the name, but there's a famous monastery down Cornwall way, and they are renowned, like worldwide renowned for breeding bee queens. And their bee queens are so docile, ridiculously docile. And he'd heard all these things about these docile bee queens. And he said he had to buy one in the end. So they ship them in the post. So they arrive. The little bee queen arrives in a little box. It's a box made out of sugar, I think, and it has got a few of her worker bees inside it. And you put it in the hive, and then gradually the worker bees in there with her and the worker bees from the current hive, they eat their way through the box, the sugar. And by the time they get through, that's their now queen. She becomes part of the colony, and he was saying he couldn't believe it. So he bought them, and he put the queen in the thing, and he opened the box, and the bees were so docile, they basically just all sat there and were like, hello. Didn't have a sting, didn't need a smoker, didn't need a suit, didn't need anything. So I need to find out the name of these bees, and I need to get some because I want to see how relaxed these bees are. Right, so I am going to answer like literally just a few more questions just because it's 8 o'clock. And yeah, Liz says we have chilled out bees and they are a joy to work with. And yet, you know, you do not want an angry hive. We had angry hives. We did. So before we moved to the farm, our neighbor had been keeping bees on our land. They were horrible bees. You would get stung even if you went anywhere near them. There's no way you couldn't even go into the same field as them. And that is not a joy. So yeah, chilled out bees, they will be a joy to work with. So Emma says, best breed of duck for a beginner. I'm pondering getting some khaki Campbells when I finally move house. And I would say best duck for a beginner is a khaki Campbell, because they are really easy to keep. They love a pond, but they don't desperately need a massive pond. They lay loads of eggs. They're really simple. So they really are a great. I wouldn't get cool ducks or any kind of ornamental ducks. Muscovies are quite a big bird and they don't really lay that much. Runners are fairly easy as well, and again, they don't need a vast amount of space or water, but they don't lay as well. So I would say khaki Campbells are a perfect breed to start out with. Males and females, really discernible as well, which is a help. You know, your drake looks like a drake rather than a different duck where they're completely sort of almost the same. So I think you've got it bang on there. Right, guys. So if there's any last questions, quickly ask them now, because if there isn't, I am going to go and watch a scary movie. So actually, ask any questions quickly, and also recommend some scary movies, because I love a good horror, and I've watched a lot, and I need something new. I like a slasher. So if you've got any slasher recommendations on Amazon Prime or Netflix, let me know, because I would love to go and watch something. And possibly put my beef on a hot plate because it's got a bit cold. Thank you, Liz. So Liz says, not a question, but just to say how lovely it is to see you looking happy and well. Thank you. And I do feel happy and well. It's amazing what a move can make. And a lot of people have said, you know, I talk to them about the farm and they go, oh, it's a lot of work, isn't it? Well, I think, well, it's not really. Like, compared, you know, what is it really? It takes me an hour to 2 hours in the morning to sort all of the animals out, and just sort of, I tend to break up the cleaning rota throughout the week. So I sort all the animals out and then I'll clean something. And then half an hour to an hour in the evening to put stuff away. So there's 3 hours. Well, most people work 9 hours a day. So that's my 3 hours. I've still got another 5 hours to potter around. And it's seasonal. So yes, I work a lot more in the summer than I do in the winter because of the daylight hours. So and also I enjoy it. So when people say, oh, it's a lot of work, how do you cope? Do you need help? I'm like, I'm fine. Ask me in 20 years when I'm 60 and my back's broken and I've got arthritis and I'm totally grey. But for now, loving life. It's the dream. And I must also say, not only is it the dream to be on the farm, it's the dream to be here in Suffolk and creating a little community. And I love my YouTube community. I love you guys. But there's also something to be said for moving to a small, you know, we live in a market town, and the village next to our farm is a proper little village, and just making connections with people who have grown up in the area. Almost everybody has heard of my grandparents. So yeah, it's just lovely. Well, thank you, everyone. We're nearly on an hour 20. So thank you so much for coming. It's been really, really nice to catch up with everybody and see you all. I'm thrilled that you've come. I know it's been a long time since the live chat, and now maybe we've got these darker evenings. We can live chat a bit more, perhaps. I might try and get online a little bit more. We might have less to talk about because there's less to do at the farm. Oh no, actually, that's a complete lie. There's more to do at the farm. There's just less time to do it in. But yeah, it's been absolutely lovely. So thank you. And if I missed your question, or you have got a question, just throw it down in the comments or ask me over on the Facebook group, and I will get to it, or I will answer it in another live stream. So I haven't ignored anybody on purpose. It's hard to keep all your ducks in a row. But anyway, right. What's this about a security thing? Go away. So I will say goodnight. Have a lovely Saturday evening. Enjoy Halloween if that's the sort of thing you like to celebrate. I will be back on Tuesday and Friday with videos next week. And then we'll try and do another live very soon. So bye for now, guys. Bye. Thank you.